What is your thoughts on this series? Obviously, intricate schedule. It's been talked a lot about a lot. I told Jeremy Elliott he needs to get royalties off of this. But what is what because he's been talking about this idea for a long time. What do you think of this series? Obviously, I'm assuming you're going to compete in all of them, or I mean, you're a driver, you're a professional driver. I don't know. I
Yeah,
mean,
but I've been running limited schedules for the last 8 years. I like the idea behind it. I do like that, but there's too many races to me. I heard the rumors of the amount of races before it ever was announced, and I'm just going to give you, when I drove the 69K, we probably averaged somewhere between 40 and 50 races a year. Okay, last 2 years I've averaged low 40s. Now last year, the weather probably cost you 10 to 15. You know what I mean? That we would have ran. So you take this series when they were talking about 47 races, and then I just add my outlaw shows and high limit shows at the Grove and Port. You're 61 races. Just between those three items.
That's a lot. That's almost a high limit number, right? I think high limit 60 something.
Yeah. And Jeremy had that list of Dietrich, Brock, Searfoss, and Anthony were the three that ran the most races in the country. I think Dietrich and Brock were in the 80s and Anthony was a high 70. Okay. After that, locally, there was a lot of teams barely got to 50. So we have 61 between Outlaws, high limit, in this series. Now, what I wasn't expecting when they announced the series, the races that are part of it, I didn't expect to be part of it, like our Speed Week.
Right.
And some other shows at the end of the year that I really didn't expect to be part of it. You know what I'm saying? So that helps in a little aspect, but then there's not a lot of teams run the whole Speed Week deal. I'd have to go back and look, but I bet you there's not, 7 or 8 teams that ran every single race of Speed Week.
Right.
Maybe 10 max.
Well, you got the 3 Mulligan races, but I believe that's to help somebody who wants to run Knoxville, because I think they actually race on top of Knoxville, correct? The Nationals.
They race on top of Knoxville for sure. I don't know about Eldora. I have to look.
I think that's a no. Pretty sure that's a no.
I think somebody else told me that was no. I just know that what Knoxville weekend is, so I knew that one was being raced against. But you have guys like Danny that goes out Ohio Speed Week because he has commitments and he likes going there. Anthony will go do whatever he does, travel wise. Chase Dietz has some commitments, with the Silver Crown stuff, and Eldora, Knoxville, he wants to run it again. And then there's races, at some tracks that there's guys not going to go to those tracks. So it depends on where they fall in the schedule. Certain tracks that are not normally in our area might be hurting for cars if they're late in the season schedules. You know what I mean?
Right. And then you're also, it seems like you're halfway in playing. Who do you think's going to run a full season's worth, even with the 3 Mulligans?
I know of supposedly 3 teams that are committed to all of it, supposedly. I'd rather not say their names because I don't know this for a fact. You know what I mean? But even them, with those 3 Mulligans, they're going to pick and choose certain tracks they don't want to go race at. And it's not going to be Williams Grove, Port Royal, Lincoln. You see what I'm saying?
Well, it's a pretty significant, for y'all, I feel like it is a pretty significant points payout. So you would think that, some of those positions would matter. It's $50,000 to win the championship. That's not chump change, and I still believe y'all are still going to have track championships, I believe. I don't know if that's all went away. But
no, I don't think so.
No. So
they
track
went away.
Championships are done. It's only this.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Now the Speed Week still has its own. From my understanding, I don't know for sure, but from my understandings, Williams Grove, Port Royal, and Lincoln will not have no track championships themselves. You know what I mean? You have this series now that I think that's where the money's going to, from what rumor is. I don't know for sure that none of our regular tracks will have point series now.
Okay.
Just this PA series, and then the Speed Week still has its own point fund.
Okay.
But like the Grove won't have a point title, Port Royal won't have a point title, and Lincoln won't have a point title. Is what I'm being told. I don't know that for a fact. I didn't hear. There's no announcement either way of that.
Do you see that as good as bad or bad? I feel like for the ego side of it, that's good, right? Because I feel like there's always this question, who's the best of PA, blah, 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 the ego side, which our sport's very egotistically based. It just is. But then there's the negative to it as to, Williams Grove track champion used to matter and now it no longer exists. That's probably the negative, right?
I might not be the right person to be asking that question because I've won them enough that I'm not interested in racing for points on a regular weekly basis.
Right.
And none of them pay enough. The Grove paid the best, but Port and Lincoln's track championship pay wasn't really worth you worrying about being there every week and skipping maybe a big race at some other track. On that night.
Right. Well, 20-year-old you probably had a preference. That's all I'm saying, 20, 30-year-old you probably wanted that,
Yeah. But I mean it's important to somebody that has won one or stuff like that. But that as far as I know, they're from the rumor I heard, they won't have their own track series titles. It'll just be the PA series title. But I could be wrong.
And so, what do you think about this PA series, short term and long term? Is it good, bad? It sounds like you're in between.
The idea is good. I thought a 30 race number would have been better than 47 because of all the other races that we do race in here. You know what I mean?
Do you think it's just trying to fit everyone in and trying to make sure that there's not a weekend where you have Port versus Lincoln and the fans are split and the cars are split? Do you think it's like, we could have probably did 30 to soft open, but let's just go all in? Do you think that it's more – because this is an all-in schedule. I mean, it went from there's no series in PA to now you basically have a series that just takes over the area. Like, it better work, because it's the last option now.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I guess yet I still haven't seen Lincoln's true schedule and Port's true schedule. I have the series races. But I have not seen, I think Port has their schedule. I have their schedule. But I don't have Lincoln's schedule or the Grove schedule. So my understanding, and I could be wrong on this, is they're not supposed to race against each other in this series deal.
Right.
But then somebody just told me today that they are on certain ones, which then don't make sense why we did the series. You know what I mean?
Right. That would
but I don't
instantly
know for sure.
Kill the idea, right? That's like, even if it's going to Bedford or Clinton County or whatever, it's supposed to kind of force, if you want to run sprint cars this week, Lincoln will have a late model show or something. And the sprint cars, if you want to run them, go to Clinton. But if you got, say they're going to Clinton County or Bedford or something, and then you're scheduled against it, that is completely destroying the idea, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I don't none of them tracks are scheduled against anything.
Okay.
Where it would basically be Port and Lincoln. I know Jerry Parrish is the guy behind this, and I think he's hoping this helps with Lincoln's crowds and their stuff. And it would be dumb for them to do the series and have 10 races at his racetrack and Port have 9 at theirs, and they race against each other on some of these. It would just be dumb. That's not benefiting either one. So I'm hoping, where the rumor is that they don't race against each other, that they don't. And, they get some cars from each track to support the other track, and they get fans from each track to support the other track.
Why do you think this Port Lincoln thing is even a thing? I mean, I know Port's made some huge strides over the last 15 years to become what it is today.
Huge strides.
Exactly, and I'm sure in that stride period or prior to that stride, that Lincoln was kind of like the top dog. I'm just assuming here, but Lincoln was the place to be until Port built theirself to the area or the level that it is now. Is that what's the deal?
I would agree at one point on Saturday night, Lincoln was the better track facility ran wise. At one point,
well, they had an original outlaw date, right? Like they have history.
Yeah, but I mean, Port. Trust me, I grew up racing Port for 41 years. Port went from being basically all but shut down to me, it's the best facility in our area.
Right, and that's what I mean by the last 15 years. It's went from that to what we know.
Yes, and and Lincoln has kind of fell behind some. In that regard, and I think Jerry's trying to find ways to, make it relevant and do, good things. And what's good. One thing I'll say about the series, no matter what happens with it, is they actually got everybody in the room and talked.
Egos to the side. Egos to the side.
Yeah. And, I heard different rumors about different things that, with it. Now I ain't going to, talk about that. But at least all the racetracks got in a room and discussed. And they come out with something. 10 years ago, that would have never happened. That would have never happened 10 years ago.
Right.
So, at least, like that, and that's what I think. I think everybody locally likes the idea of it. I think most of the race teams are the same as me. 47 with everything else we do, it's a good bit of races.
Well,
what I mean?
I think what you're also saying is like the greatest thing is they put their egos to the side to discuss this and get to this point of even having it. But I also think what you're saying is like, let's keep that in mind, going forward. Like, let's still work together in a futuristic way. Because I agree, like if you have a PA series race at Port and then Lincoln still races, I mean, what was the point to begin with? That has to be figured out.